This episode of PC Perspective is brought to you by Simple Contacts, an easy and convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription or reorder your contacts from anywhere within minutes. Get $30 off your first Simple Contacts order by visiting simplecontacts.com/PCPer and entering promo code PCPer. Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 496, being recorded on April 18th, 2018, the day after tax day. I'm Ryan Shrout.
No, that's wrong.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom, and your tax day got extended because your servers went, what?
Tax day's today.
Yeah, and I'm Josh Walrath, and I corrected, well, only Ryan, which is normal.
And I'm Allyn Mamontano.
I paid my taxes a day early. Is that what you're telling me?
I wanted to pay my taxes and then couldn't because their website was down.
I paid mine the old-fashioned way by sending in a check.
Oh, well then you're fine.
Did you write it in your own blood?
Oh, yeah. I wrote it in somebody else's blood.
They just withdraw the blood. You know, It's an automatic thing.
Welcome to the show, guys. I want everybody to know that we've got we've only got 4 episodes until 500, so somebody better come up with a good idea.
Nah.
Well, I mean, the one before that.
What we need is a 500th episode anniversary shirt.
The one before that, Josh needs to do the intro.
It's the number 500 with a birthday hat on it. There you go, done.
Yeah, easy.
This is why we don't let Ryan in charge of these things.
We need to let Josh do the $4.99 one, though.
Oh, yeah, he has to do the $4.99 intro. Just
because
I got it.
Because $4.99.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome to the show, guys. We do record on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific at pcper.com/live. This is our very special episode where we have world exclusive information to share with you about Josh Tech. And it's it's going to be amazing. If you want a general reminder about our live streams, you can go to pcper.com/subscribe right now. And you'll get this page here. Ask for your name, ask for your email address, and we'll send you an email when we're going to do a live stream. So that can be handy for you. So please do that. We also have our Patreon campaign running. That is at patreon.com/PCPer. This is your way to become a monthly contributor to the website. It could be for $1, $3, $5, $10, whatever you want. We absolutely love everybody who does this. It goes directly to us. It supports us, allows us to do the cool things that we do, mailbag, etc. And as always is the case, if you become a new patron during the live stream, or increase your patronage during the live stream, I will read out your name on the show, regardless of how obnoxious or funny or dumb it might be. I don't know, one of those things. So again, patreon.com/PCPer. Before we move on, we have 2 new patrons from Java and the Beanstalk who just pledged $3. Thank you very much, Java.
I can't keep up with these new web development tools.
And Fill Me Up Josh just pledged $5.45.
Ooh.
Phil, Phil. Me Up, MEEYUP -Josh. It's their maiden name.
Cream of some young guy.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's just what happens. Again, I mentioned the mailbags. These are the mailbags where we answer questions. Apparently, I have a link in here for the last week's episode because the previous week's. But Josh didn't do this week's. I did this week's, and I don't know who's going to do tomorrow's, but it's probably going to be me because I haven't scheduled anybody else to do it. But we sit here and sit in front of our computers and answer your submitted questions for about 20 minutes or so. You can leave them on the YouTube channel, leave them on the comments to the post on pcper.com as well.
And if you watch the entire thing of that, I flamethrow the rest of my office.
Nice.
Because that's live because it looks exactly the same.
So now as we get into our merch section, it's time for the big reveal that everybody's been waiting for, the big world exclusive for Josh Tech. We have Josh Tech merchandise.
Merchandising.
Do you want your own...
The coffee cup.
You want your own Josh Tech coffee cup? It won't be filled with Wyoming whiskey when you get it, probably.
I mean, he can fix that.
I forgot to clean this out before I put the bourbon in it. But it is bourbon, so, you know.
It cleans everything.
It's an antiseptic, right?
Oh, yeah.
And not only can you get that sweet... Here, move this out of the way.
Yeah, that's kind of small. You know, need a bigger one.
Also, you can get your very own Josh Tech t-shirt. Look at that.
World exclusive.
Freaking awesome.
World
Josh Tech
exclusive
wear.
information. And to go along with this, the URL is now joshtech.com, takes you to this page, the merch page, where you can find a Josh Tech mug, a Josh Tech print, and a Josh Tech t-shirt in many colors, multiple colors at the very least.
I feel like we're selling used cars.
This is great. The mug is fantastic. This is literally, it's a poster that
It's
you
a
could
canvas
put,
print.
It's a canvas print that you can put up in your,
I would proudly have that in my living room.
up to 16 by
Tell
20.
me that.
Up to 16 by 20.
At least it
I'm
was my
thinking we might
bedroom.
have to do a print series so you can have like a mosaic on
I'm
your
going to
wall.
hang one on my
PC
ceiling.
prints.
It's like the Wookiee Jesus.
I want the
I have
dark
a
gray
signed
version.
copy
There
of
you
that, by
go.
the way.
You
For
have a
some
signed
reason,
copy
it
of the
won't let
Wookiee
us sell
Jesus?
the
So do I.
It won't let us
image
sell the
resolution?
biggest size. I said we wanted to sell the biggest size, and they just said no.
That's so weird. I do appreciate Ken, who set this up, his attention to detail, because this is the Josh Tech print with two T's at the end.
That's clever.
And the Josh Tech mug with two on there. Again, all the proceeds on this go to us, just like the Patreon type stuff. So if you want, I think everybody needs this in their life.
It was pretty funny earlier
Listen,
today.
Ryan bought a T-shirt. I bought a mug. We're into this. You should get into
I paid
this.
full price for my T-shirt.
And if you're Canadian, the mug's cheaper than the print.
Oh,
It's 18 and 25.
they must have a place to print mugs in Canada, but not canvases. Interesting. Of course, you still have access to the PC Per mug, Death Wish Raid, the PC Per Classic T-shirt. All of that is still there for you. But obviously, you want the Josh Walrus, Josh Tech with the racing wheel T-shirt. It does.
I
have,
like how they got the glass is pretty accurate.
It's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
It does have a PC Per logo on the back of the T-shirt as well. So don't worry. You know, if you want the green, I like that green color. That's nice.
Yeah,
Kelly
I
green.
figured you'd do a British racing green for Josh Tech.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
required.
that works.
Be prepared to answer questions whenever you wear this T-shirt out.
Yeah.
Is all I can say. All I can say.
And then email us the stories that you tell.
Again, the new URL for the merch store, no longer a bit.ly. It is joshtech.com. JOSHTEKK.com.
The solution to do with what to do with Josh Tech was in front of our eyes all
I
this
know the
time.
whole
entire
time.
time.
Merchandising.
Josh
So,
Tech, the flamethrower.
We're totally into now making new T-shirts. If anybody has new designs for us, I think we have a Darth Malventano.
I don't think it'll be a T-shirt.
I
I
don't
think it
think
might
it's
be a
t-shirt. I don't
mug
think
and
it's
a print.
t-shirt.
I don't think it'll work too well as a T-shirt.
Yeah.
Which image is that? I don't remember which one.
It's a very
I don't
complex
know. I
image,
can't
and
find
it
it.
has your face on it, so I don't want to put it on a T-shirt.
Oh, gee, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Josh gets the adorable frickin' walrus.
Well, yeah.
But you don't want to put Darth Malventano on a frickin' T-shirt.
Alan, come up with a spirit animal, and we'll figure this out.
I don't.
Now I feel bad because I'm trying to figure out. I want to say that it was Mark. I can't find the email now.
Oh, you're looking for the Darth Malventano?
Yeah. No. Well, he did both. Actually, he did one for me too, but I don't think that one was a good one either for a
I don't
T-shirt.
remember.
The 10 cents per gig shirt. We might have to rethink that one too. But anyway, check out the shirts. Buy them if you think they're funny. Buy them if you don't. I don't really care.
Yeah.
So let's get on to the podcast. Now, here's a trick, guys. It's on the rundown for the 2700X. We can't talk about it on the live stream. So if you're watching this or listening to this after the fact, here we are talking about the latest Ryzen processors. All right, so let's talk about the new Ryzen 2000 series, the Ryzen 7 2700X, Ryzen 5 2600X. It's been a year now since the
A little
first
over a
release.
year. It's March.
Okay, it's been a year and a month since the first release of the Ryzen parts, and AMD is in the unfortunate situation where they delivered such an incredible increase in performance, IPC, raising expectation levels, all that kind of thing, that it's literally impossible to do it a second time around, especially considering that they were very upfront in talking about this being a fairly modest architectural shift, a fairly modest frequency bump. You know, they went from 14 nanometer down to 12 nanometer at Global Foundries, although there is a debate on what that even means, right? Is there legitimately a huge difference in that process tech? Josh, what are your thoughts on that before we move on? Is there a real significant movement in that 14 to 12 plus or 12 nanometer, I guess, at GloFo?
Well, yes. But I mean, it's not obviously night and day. I mean, if you look at it, you do get, I think the primary push of this was efficiency, transistor switching performance, and not really optimizing for die size. So I think that overall the chips are supposedly about the same size as previous, but through your testing, you can see that they are a little bit more power efficient and they do scale a little bit higher. And so you wouldn't get kind of one without the other. And so, yeah, they can legitimately call it a 12 nanometer process. They can apply it to other products if people so desire. But it's an evolutionary step rather than something revolutionary. And it's not exactly the same as like TSMC with their 16 nanometer and what they have a 12 nanometer coming up. That there's going to be a significant difference in between their 16 and 12.
Right.
Because their 16 was kind of based on their previous 20 nanometer work, except they're using FinFETs and a little bit different in the front end. But with this, it's more of the old time continual improvement that we used to see from AMD back in the early 2000s before they spun off Global Foundries.
Right.
This is, they've taken a process. They've adjusted parts of it. They've done some smaller advanced features in others. And then another big part is, of course, just I think that AMD went through kind of with a fine-tooth comb and they optimized their Zen design.
Yeah.
So it all goes kind of hand in hand to get you this, not a significant jump, but it's an appreciable jump.
Moderate, I would say.
Yeah.
Jump. From a specification standpoint, what's interesting is, so first of all, I was going to say we talked about this last week. We didn't, because the pre-orders for this part went up on Friday after our podcast last week, right?
Friday the 13th.
Friday the
Usually
13th,
bodes
of
well.
course. And then, of course, this Friday being 420, right? This is a very important, it's a very important week.
It is.
There is no 2800X. There's a 2700X that is now the new flagship part. Competing against that 1800X, kind of the 1700X, really. But then you get the 2600X versus 1600X. Now, what you'll see is the clock speeds are missing on the 1800X and the 1600X, but I did pull those up here. Basically what you get from the 1800X, the top end part then, to the 2700X top end part now, you get 300 megahertz. The max boost was 4 gigahertz before. It's now 4.3 gigahertz. On the 1600X, you go from 4 gigahertz to 4.2 gigahertz, and those are obviously the 6-core parts. Now, one thing worth noting right here is that the TDP does go up from the 1800X to the 2700X, from 95 watts to 105 watts. So even though you are getting 300 megahertz of additional frequency and 100 megahertz of base clock, it is coming at the expense of a little bit of extra power. Although I think you'll see when you look at our review and other reviews that the performance per watt is still better on these solutions. The big architectural change that AMD claims are these latency improvements, and you can see on the slide here they talk about anywhere from 11 to 34% improvements in system DRAM, L1 cache, L2 cache, L3 cache, kind of equating to around 3% IPC improvement, with all else being equal between the previous architecture and Zen Plus. I asked many, many times and in many different ways for somebody to explain what they did to enable these cache improvements, latency improvements, and literally nobody had an answer for me that was anything other than,
Optimizations.
Things are better, and we took the time to really think about stuff and blah blah blah. Regardless, fine, sure, we move on. I'm sure everybody on the show will remember our ping testing that we did before that allowed us to really dive into and learn about the Zen architecture previously, in how inter CCX and intra CCX latencies kind of affected things and performance and all that. And this graph, a little bit complicated to understand, but it's interesting because we ran that same test on the new 2700X as well. And here we're comparing it to the 1800X. If you look at just the yellow and the gray lines, those are the ones where we set both processors at 3.6 gigahertz. They're both running a DDR4 2667. which you'll notice is an interesting thing. If you look here, the green and yellow lines that are even, but the yellow line is what's important, is that the inside the CCX latency is actually longer or worse on the new 2700X.
Right. For those that don't understand what this is, inside the CCX is basically half of the CPU's cores if they're communicating with each other.
Yeah, the Zen design is built into CCX core complexes.
Yep. And there's two of them.
There's two of them on an 8-core part.
Yep.
And
it's
a
4
6-core
cores.
part has 2 of them with 3 cores enabled on each. And each CCX has its own L3 cache that is shared amongst the cores, right? When you cross from one CCX to the other, even on the same die, you are crossing through Infinity Fabric, which is their name for the basically the interconnect between all these components. And so what you notice in that green and yellow here is that inside the CCX, the latency actually got worse from about 50 nanoseconds to 55 nanoseconds or so. But if you look up here and you go across CCX, you'll notice that it got better. So from the gray line to the yellow line, we got about a 10 nanosecond improvement. And then we get about another 10 seconds if you bump up that memory speed from 2667 to 2933, which I point out because these new parts have a 2933 megahertz JEDEC spec official support, right? Whereas the previous gen stopped at 2667.
And then we just know that when you bump up the DRAM frequency, that the CCX communication
DRAM frequency is related to Infinity Fabric speed, and thus you see these improvements.
Right.
So it's interesting to me that they apparently had to have a trade-off in the architecture, whereas they wanted to improve the cross CCX communication speed. They had to sacrifice the inside CCX communication speed.
It seems odd to me because there was all this discussion about the Windows scheduler and prioritizing and all these things.
It was all disproven, and they said that wasn't the case.
Where I'm going with that is as far as that the scheduler would try to keep within a core complex first, and then only really go to the other.
Josh and I talked about this. You're saying why sacrifice the inside CCX performance?
Right, because you are going to get a benefit. Well, okay, so actually I can kind of see it. If you're a person that always runs in UMA mode, which is where...
You say UMA, but I really think it should pronounce Yuma. But that's
Yuma,
fine.
okay, whatever. It's not Numa.
Not Numa,
about
yes, perfect.
What about Ms. Thurman?
Yeah, I know.
Uma Thurman.
But if you're running it not in NUMA mode, in other words, it's basically interleaving the DRAM banks across, then basically every time you go to hit RAM, you have to go across, across the fabric. Like every time
every other time.
Well, it's interleaved, yeah. As opposed to it could potentially be everything was just on that side and local.
I think it's more simple than that. I think, and Josh and I had this conversation. Josh, correct me on this if I'm misrepresenting something you said. Okay, is that the 10 nanosecond advantage you get at the top tier is worth more than the 5 nanoseconds you lose in the bottom tier. Like maybe there is another threshold of, hey, anything under 60 nanoseconds is actually doing what we want it to do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right?
You're chopping off a bigger percentage across the Infinity Fabric than you're sacrificing within the core complex.
But Alan's right. You do kind of have to basically say, I believe that I'm going to have more applications that are using threads that are crossing the CCX more frequently than I am inside the CCX. But again, because nobody would answer my questions at AMD, I don't really know the answer here, even though I supplied them this data a few days ago.
Well, there's another significant thing there, which I'm not sure if we have charts to back that up or not. But like, if you can reduce the fabric related latency, you should also be reducing latency to the DRAM, just in general, from any core to the DRAM.
Correct.
Which is arguably that's kind of important.
Maybe about 11% or so.
Yeah.
He says, pointing up at this graph that shows about 11%.
Another thing that we haven't even considered is maybe some small kind of heuristic changes in how the front end of the CPU actually accesses memory. Maybe in your ping, it shows a little bit higher, but maybe it's able to stack up requests a little bit more efficiently to kind of send out to request this memory in L1, L2, L3, and main memory. And so maybe with just this ping, it looks like it's longer in the L1, L2, but in reality, if maybe it's actually just faster, but we don't. Again, you said, we don't know the mechanism.
We don't know
that they're using to do this.
Other interesting things here. There is, even though we don't have the review finished yet. So the X4, we are recording this before the launch, right? So the X470 chipset. There's nothing new in the chipset itself.
USB 3.1 Gen 2.
Oh, is it really?
I believe so.
Okay. What you do get is motherboards that are basically AMD learned a lot in the launch of the X370 in terms of power delivery to these processors and how to better, work with the motherboard vendors to improve that. And so this gave the motherboard vendors a chance to re-release a new board with improvements in those areas. Support, make sure you have support for the 105 watt TDP, not just the 95 watt TDP. They add StoreMI capability, but again, it's not a chipset specific feature. It was supported on an X370. They're just kind of including it.
Yeah.
At like the,
it's like a licensed or cross licensed or something.
It's like the middle licensed version of what was it, fuse drive technology that we had talked about before. We haven't done a whole lot of testing on it yet.
Right.
On it, because AMD was kind of holding on to the final version until the very last minute. So we're going to dive some more into that.
There's supposed to be a bunch of changes coming, and so we don't want to spend a bunch of time testing it and then have to.
It also supports NVMe RAID.
Yes.
This time, which was something that they added to Threadripper that apparently they added to some X370 boards late in the game.
Yeah, it seems like it's kind of an option that comes over with the latest AGESA code, because there have been a couple of X370 boards. I know one of the Gigabyte boards has NVMe RAID in the latest firmware, which added the newest AGESA code for the Pinnacle Ridge support.
Yeah.
So your mileage may vary on your motherboards. I don't know if it'll make it back to like B series chipsets or anything like that.
You might be able to go further back as long as you're not trying to boot from the RAID.
No, I'm pretty sure it would work.
Yeah, because that's
fine as long as you have the new UEFI.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like,
supported.
If you want to be able to not just boot from it, but also be able to configure the array before you do your OS install, as an example.
Yeah.
Like that sort of thing. You need something in the BIOS that's there, like some sort of GUI to create the array. Yeah. Otherwise, you have to jump through a bunch of hoops, and like you'd have to have a Windows install there to install everything and then create the array.
Sorry, this plane flying extremely low.
Yeah.
Any quick point on the NVMe RAID stuff from a performance standpoint?
They do, because of the way that they do it. They basically have a driver. They call it a bottom driver that like it replaces the Windows inbox NVMe driver. Mm-hmm. So it's like a filter driver. It latches on to the NVMe devices, and then it makes them available to basically like a software RAID layer, right? And as you might imagine, that's kind of a lot of hoops to jump through, like kernel-wise and like driver-wise. Mm-hmm. And so it actually does take a hit on performance. We did some...
It takes a hit compared to...
I compared it to Z270 because that's what we had numbers available on.
It compared to an Intel...
Yeah, compared to an Intel RAID, but realize the Intel thing is much more of a packaged... It's part of the chipset. It's all like it's hardware support, right?
Which being part of the chipset is sort of a disadvantage because they're behind, not QPI. What's the...
DMI.
DMI, yes.
Yeah. So they are bandwidth limited, whereas they're direct CPU lanes.
Yes. So the short version of it is if you're looking for straight line sequential transfers, then AMD is going to win.
Okay.
Right? Because you go more than one NVMe SSD and you've already saturated DMI on Intel if you're trying to do an array, right? So sequential, it's great, even though the latencies take a slight hit, but for sequential latency isn't that important. But as soon as you start getting into random access, it's like 30 to 50% longer latency on the AMD side. Mm-hmm. And that was using 960 Pro, which typically does like 60 microsecond latency, and it was going upwards of like 80 and 90 microseconds.
Sure.
If you take that in like a how much time was added standpoint, if you're a person that wants to use Optane SSDs to have really, really low latency, that's adding like more than 2x the latency of the product.
Okay.
Right? Because you're kind of throwing away. Optane does like 10 to 12 microseconds. If you add another 30 on top of that, that's really bad, right? So don't use Optane for a RAID here, but it's probably okay with something like 960 Pros or 960 Evos.
All right. I think we're going to do some more on that soon because I would like to see kind of what those technological differences are. I know we've been talking about all this a lot and we haven't touched anything on benchmarks. One last thing. All of these parts come with stock coolers, which I think people might just inherently write off because we've been so used to like the crud that is the Intel stock cooler. AMD's Ryzen parts had really good coolers.
Yeah.
But this time they're actually, every part in the 2000 series comes with a cooler. The 2700X does, the 2600X, 2700, 2600, they all come with stock coolers. Different ones. Like I think only the 2700X comes with the new Wraith Prism.
Yeah.
Is that right, Ken? This is your biggest, best 3-zone LED enabled cooler.
Not this one, right?
Yeah, it's that one.
Oh, is it this one?
That one's got the RGBs.
Yeah.
Look at the switch.
And it also has
where's
kind of the different latching mechanism on it as well.
Yeah, it has a classic sort of AMD mounting mechanism, which is because, as Joshua would be likely to point out, this was originally an AM3 cooler, essentially. This was the original Wraith. It's been a little bit tweaked. They tweaked the design so you can fit in more RAM. They had the RGB stuff, but essentially is unchanged for the most part.
You did some testing, Ken, and like performance on it was really good.
Yeah.
Like,
At under sustained load with X264 encoding, it was like 2 or 3 degrees off our Corsair H110i 240 millimeter all-in-one water cooler.
Wow.
At stock frequencies.
Well, I mean, it's pretty stout, right? It's a copper block. Like,
it's direct contact.
Direct contact heat pipes,
We're
copper.
talking about a 105 watt part, and the stock cooler is fantastic.
Yeah.
And that really shouldn't be overlooked, right? So this part's $329, but it comes with a cooler that may save you, I mean, even best case scenario, what's the cooler master? 30 bucks?
30, 40
right?
bucks.
And the 8700K doesn't come with a cooler. And if it did, you wouldn't want to use it because those coolers were bad. Unless Intel changes their game up and stuff. Yeah. So that's another good advantage. So I wanted to look at a little bit of performance, and I'm just kind of jump around to some of those highlights here, some of the points that we know we're interested in talking about. This is actually an interesting one. So we look at single-threaded performance. Audacity MP3 encode. This is one we've used for a while for straight line, multi or single thread. And you can see here that the 8700K is wildly faster. This is a lower is better result than the 2600X or the 2700X. This was an interesting one in that late in the game, AMD had worked with the guy who develops the lame plugin for Audacity. And apparently it was a 10-year-old compile or something like that.
Yeah, the version 3.99.3 is from November 2011, if I remember correctly.
So long story short, they recompiled it with a modern compiler, set a flag for like SSE2.
Yeah, and it was x86 only before it wasn't compiled for x64.
And so this is the improvement now. So Intel's is still faster, but the difference drops from like a 30% jump
3%.
to like 3%.
You and those misleading graphs.
Yeah, we'll have to change that. We'll fix that. But you know, hey,
it's the only one, Josh.
Good on them.
I'm sorry.
Good on AMD for like seeing that, going, oh, that's crappy, and engaging with a dev to make it.
And they're not cheating because they still lose. Like if they were cheating, they would make themselves win.
And we were talking about this before, like MP3 encoding. Yeah, who cares? I would bet the number of people who use Audacity for podcast editing is significant. It's a huge number.
Yeah,
it's GarageBand and then probably Audacity, if not the other way around. Handbrake.
Doesn't that sort of give you the warm and fuzzies of thinking back to Quake 2 and the 3D Now patch that Carmack developed for that?
Yes, yeah, it does.
Fuzzies.
Memories.
The general performance outlook is that in multi-threaded workloads like Handbrake here, the 2700X is faster than the 8700K. In the X264 benchmark, the 2700X is faster. Cinebench.
The more important thing in the X264 benchmark is the 2700X to 8600K story. And I think it was past 2, maybe it's like 50% faster. The Ryzen part is like 50% faster than the Intel.
28 to 36.
Yeah, because you have an additional 6 threads to run.
Oh wait, the 2600X here is 2854 frames per second. Versus 22.
No, sorry, the other pass is the one I'm looking at. 100.51 versus 55.35.
100 versus 55. Yeah.
It was such a big difference that I ran that test again today on the 8600K to make sure I didn't screw up running the test.
Yeah. I mean, 6 cores, 6 threads versus 6 cores, 12 threads in a very well optimized algorithm that is highly threaded.
And that's one of the really common stories here is that the 2600X and the 8600K are much more fierce competition than the 2700X and the 8700K, and I think the 2600X comes out on top more often than the Intel part, except for really, really single-threaded workloads.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The highly single-threaded stuff's going to be a change there. So, we look at Blender here. There are improvements. The 2700X is faster, 2101 seconds versus 2400 seconds. But again, 2600X versus the A600K, you're looking at like legitimately 1200 seconds of difference. This is a very long render, of course, but that's what's that, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Or something like that, right? So those numbers mean a lot more in that case. So the story for Ryzen stays very similar. Single threaded, it's still behind, right? That didn't go away. It's a little bit better than it was because of the higher clock speeds.
And the faster memory.
And the faster memory up to 2933 out of the box. But in multi-threaded, it actually extends its lead again. So let's talk about gaming real fast. We're going to look at 1080p gaming. The story is improved here, but I would still put the statement out that the Ryzen 2000 series is still not as fast as an 8700K. It's close.
Yeah.
It's close.
It's getting closer.
Here's Ashes, right? 94.7 versus 103.7. Ghost Recon Wildlands 104 to 113.
I mean, that's a reasonably close.
You're getting into the negligible gap. There are some games that show much higher. Like if you look at GTA right there, which is a very, very CPU heavy game.
CPU bound, yeah.
You see big differences, but
and in that case, like the 8600K is still faster than both of the new Ryzen parts. Yeah, for example. But they're not huge margins. Here's Assassin's Creed Origins 85 versus 93.
Yeah, so you're running like 5 to 15%.
I don't think I ever saw 15%. I would say
GTA was just 15%.
And there's a couple of instances where the Ryzen is faster.
Yeah.
Right? Let's see. Total Warhammer is not one of them, but
one of the other interesting comparisons to look at is the 2700X versus the 7700K. They're pretty equal, if not the Ryzen part being a bit better in some tests.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, here's like 173 versus 175.
Yeah. So if you think of the 7700K as a really good 1080p gaming part, the 2700X is way more on par than the 1800X.
Shadow of War is one of the ones where it's faster, 114 versus 111. So not a huge number, negligible within margin of error, but it's there, right? And then there's this instance where you see Forza, where the 8700K has a significant advantage, right? So I would classify 1080p gaming as tied to like 8% slower or so.
Yeah.
Right?
That seems reasonable.
And then when you look at, Ken did some testing at 1440 and 4K, that falls off, right? Obviously, the metrics are a lot closer. We've only got the 2700X and the 8700K here. And at 4K.
Obviously, the more you shift towards it being a GPU bottleneck, the more the CPU doesn't matter as much. And
so if you're on a widescreen monitor, if you're playing at 25 by 14, the differences don't really matter. We already talked about the
show the photo. Show the photo of the cool cooler. Ooh, look at that! 3 RGB zones.
Ooh,
you got the AMD logo. You got the spinny fan part, and you got the ring.
Yeah,
nice. I'm spinning. Look at me.
We talked about the performance of it. It is very good. Power consumption. This was an interesting one. It's higher by like not an inconsiderable amount, right? Like it's 20 watts higher than the 1800X, which is odd because it's only a 10 watt TDP difference.
Of course, TDP doesn't mean power consumption.
No, I know. But the 2600X is a more significant delta there. Like,
it's like
it's 30 something watts difference. And the 2600, if you look at the 2700X versus that 8700K, it's using 40 watts more power.
Yeah.
At the wall. So that's not insignificant. That's if we're looking at a mobile platform, that'd be a problem. Desktop platform, not nearly as big a deal. But if you want to talk about architectural efficiency and like design, clearly the Intel one is still more efficient because it wins in single threaded. It wins in gaming, but in multi-threaded, I don't know, what's the average kind of multi-threaded advantage that AMD has? Is it like 30% or something like that, like in Cinebench?
It's a little bit smaller than that. I'd say like 15 to 20.
So what does that turn into in terms of power consumption comparison? It's closer than that, right? So depending on what your workload is, that'll take that into consideration.
If you have a cooler that can handle it, like the stock coolers in this case,
then what's it matter?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Maybe you buy a 50-watt bigger PSU just to have the headroom, but like...
I think we've hit a wall on our idle power consumption, everybody. I don't know if anybody sees that. Those blue bars here as we scroll down the thing.
It's going to take 40
We've hit the level of the 1080 Ti's idle power consumption, essentially.
It's maybe close to that. You did some real quick overclocking. We were able to hit, what, 4.3 on all cores?
4.2 locked on all cores, which is interesting because the single core turbo is 4.3, so you're actually losing 100 megahertz there with single threaded.
So there's two ways to overclock. In the BIOS, it's all cores, right? Period.
Yeah.
If you use
at least
Ryzen,
in our BIOS, I don't know about other
that's
ones.
True. We were using the Asus board.
Yeah.
Right.
RG.
If you use Ryzen Master, you can do more. You can say it's single core. I want this to be able to go up to 4.5. But if I'm doing 4 cores, I want these to go up to 4.2, right? That type of thing. We didn't have a whole lot of luck with Ryzen Master. It was a little bit unstable. Didn't seem to apply settings.
And even locked at the 42x multiplier at 4.2 gigahertz all core running load, it was getting, I think, if you click on the screenshot, you can see, I think it was like 87C on the H110. So it gets hot quick. There doesn't seem to be a lot of headroom here.
4.2 gigahertz.
It seems like they use the headroom up in kind of slotting out these products into the family.
Right.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Nope.
It means more people get more performance without having to mess with anything.
Right.
But if you're a hardcore overclocker, it doesn't seem like this is going to be your ideal part.
Jeremy's posted stories about 6 gigahertz or nearly 6 gigahertz on these parts using Allyn 2. Clearly there is a there's a bottleneck here on our water cooling / air cooling.
And let's be honest, you and I aren't very good at overclocking, and we didn't spend a whole lot of time with it. No, so obviously look towards other people who are into the overclocking thing. Sure. But
so let's look at the pricing. Go ahead.
So, I know you haven't gotten into this yet, but the thing that just strikes me the most is what the original 1800X was released at $499.
Yeah, $499.
$499.
It's $170 cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's impressive, right? A year ago, $499. Now you're getting better performance for $329.
Yeah, it's about 10% better performance.
Hey guys, this is what competition does.
Yeah, and you're getting a stock cooler,
and you get a cooler with it. I do think that's important, and for everybody who uses a Corsair water cooler or whatever other brand or use custom loop, you don't care about that. But I bet for 80% of people, they're gonna love having this in the box. It's a good looking. Mm-hmm. It saves you $30, so essentially, if you think about it, you're getting it for $299 instead. Type of deal, whatever it is.
I mean, I have an i5 7500 in my computer at home, and I'm using a piece of crap Intel stock cooler still.
So this is a really interesting launch. You gave an editor's choice to the 2600X and a gold award for the 2700X. Why the distinction?
I think the 2600X is the sweet spot for a lot of users, whether you're even if you're a pure gamer. I think the compromises are a lot less than they were last year with the Ryzen parts compared to Intel.
Yeah.
And comparing the 2600X, the i5 8600K, 2600X is just such better value. You get that multi-threaded performance. You get the extra 6 threads of multi-thread performance. You get on par gaming.
Yeah.
And within 5 to 10%, maybe within definitely very playable standards. And it's like $10 or $20 less expensive. You get a cooler in the box. We don't with the A600K.
Yeah,
you're gonna have cheaper platform options with AMD.
My takeaway from this, and I'm trying to wrap this up quicker because I know we're already running over our time, is that it's not a revolutionary step like the first gen was, but this is I think a little bit better than what we have seen from Intel in a couple of previous generations, where they did the tick-tock thing or tick-tock or
it's
whatever
a waltz now or whatever.
Are you saying that we haven't seen much improvement since Skylake in 2014?
No, I mean that's not really fair to say. I don't know. I don't think this is necessarily better than those improvements like gen to gen. It's probably pretty comparable. But what I would say is that's good news. Right, is that AMD was able to tweak process, tweak architecture just a little bit, get 200 or 300 megahertz extra performance out of it. Your price is lower, power consumption is a little bit higher, but overall a better solution for gamers. They're able to address some of those pain points, raise the memory speed, get those latencies down. I'm pretty impressed with what they've done. And
they're working on a pretty decent schedule of yearly. So we were one year and month away from from the initial one, and next year we're going to have a new process and a new design.
Yep.
That we can look forward to.
Yep. They've done well on execution. Okay. All right. That's going to wrap up our Ryzen discussion. Let's move on to the next topic. And we're back. Wasn't that a riveting discussion about Ryzen processors?
It was. I feel like we totally
Fascinating.
did not pre-record that.
Jeremy, where'd you go?
Now Jeremy, you left for that 30 minutes.
What do you think?
Okay.
There's also a continuity error now because I wasn't wearing my hoodie during that segment.
Ryan, we talked about this before the podcast. There should
I know,
be no
but I could
continuity
only-
errors.
No dedication.
I could only tape the headphones to one part of one shirt.
3 years from now, you're going to be explaining to a fan why it is that this happened.
I know. So anyway, let's move on to the
How
next
are you
topic.
not too hot in that?
It's a little bit.
I didn't
chilly
say
here.
I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, yeah, if you're watching the live stream, I apologize for that. But if you're watching this or listening to this after the fact, it will all be in there. Reviews go up at 9 a.m. tomorrow on Thursday morning. So let's talk about some other stuff. We missed this from last week, actually. This is a review that Allyn posted of the Western Digital Black NVMe and SanDisk Extreme Pro NVMe 1 terabyte hard drives, not hard drives, excuse me.
I'm not.
SSDs.
I know. We said Western Digital.
I said Western Digital. That's just what
I know.
I'm going with.
I know.
Right?
And you said black, which you
did,
would normally
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Normally hard drives. Yeah. There have been some Western Digital Black SSDs. Remember there was the Black 2
Yeah.
years back. You know,
too,
it was
me
like
too.
a hybrid. It was a hard drive plus a SSD, like kind of sort of built in, right?
Well, they also already have a black NVMe drive as well.
They do. They. This is the Western Digital WD Black.
That's stupid.
That is a different product than the Western Digital
Seems
Black
reasonable.
NVMe
Bring up
SSD.
Microsoft working on this with the Xbox One box.
Yeah,
Xbox.
That was brought up as a point of confusion, and they basically were like, "Look, like this is what the black should have been. We regret calling the last one the black.
Are these
So sorry."
the same product essentially?
They are the exact same product
just
with
different labels and different channels that they can sell through.
there's
and
a
all
few bytes different in the firmware, and that's the bytes that say the product name.
That's pretty good.
That's basically it.
Pretty good.
So yeah, they're identical products. They're
Are we allowed
keeping.
to say they're identical products?
I mean, they told us they're identical
right.
products. So like, yeah,
I just
it's-
want to flash the Western Digital firmware to the SanDisk one.
Well, I mean,
Just
it would
just
still
because.
it would still do
Just
the
exactly.
same.
Just because.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, but the reason they're sticking with this for the moment is because SanDisk has more of a name in like OEM circles,
Right.
and they're still trying to take advantage of that, even though technically they're the same company and one owns the other. And you know,
So what are the specs we're looking at for these identical products?
the specs are pretty ambitious. You're basically looking at the same kind of specs you'd expect out of something like a 960 Pro, which is like flagship, like not just flagship, but like sort of king of like NVMe test results, right? You know, I mean, it's all I did have an issue where they're still Western Digital's rating the drive. They're doing like the they rated it QDEP 32 8 threads. So if you have 8 programs on your computer that are simultaneously requesting 32
32
things
each.
at the same time, it's kind of like, no, come
a
on,
little
guys.
insane. All right.
We kind of need to move away from the crazy IQ depths and the specs.
We get our numbers higher, Alan.
I understand. That's how you get your high numbers. But what really matters, and we'll cover this as we go through the review, is like low Q depth numbers, right? We want good performance without giving the SSD some huge heads up of 255 instructions into the future, right? I did. It's sort of funny for these drives, but I did do an internals. And by that, I just peeled the labels off, and then you can definitely tell that they're.
Why'd you invert them? And now I can't tell for sure.
Scroll down.
Oh.
There. Are you happy? Okay. Just for you, I included that next picture. It's the same damn thing.
Okay.
Right. It's BICS3 TLC flash. These drives have basically think of them as like 960 Evo style, like an Evo class driver that it does the SLC caching, right? If you scroll down a little more, there's some pretty interesting stuff here, and that is people have to get creative. They're trying to catch up to Samsung, right? And we're talking Samsung products that launched like 2 years ago, and people still have yet to surpass them.
Sure.
Right? so you kind of got to get creative. And Western Digital and SanDisk have certainly done this here. Their controller has these things in it called sequencers.
So you're saying they got perpendicular, right?
No.
No, I'm sorry.
No, there's no perpendicular style video for sequencers.
Someone should invent that.
Basically, what they are is like hardware pipelines that are designed to handle. They're ASICs.
Okay.
So think like Bitcoin mining ASICs, and they go way faster than a CPU can. Same kind of deal here. ASICs. There's a set of them on the host side. Basically, there's an NVMe ASIC. So you have a set of hardware designed to a specific NVMe revision, like an NVMe spec, right? So it handles all that stuff in hardware, and presumably can do that much faster than a controller trying to do it all in firmware or software. And then there are things called sequencers, which handle all the data path going from the host all the way across to the flash. There is some help. There is still in this case, a triple core. I think it's an ARM CPU in there. It handles things like flash translation layer. Like that's still a thing. You have to still look up where is the data actually on the flash. But that aside,
are you sure it's not a RISC-V processor?
I don't think they said it was a RISC-V processor.
I don't know if they've launched anything of that yet.
I don't think so either.
Well,
yeah, no, they were saying this is like an ASIC style hardware. So the idea is that while the CPU kind of steps in and guides the process, it's doing it more alongside of the pipelines as opposed to being in the center of the pipelines, right? So now you're not waiting specifically for a CPU to be able to, accelerate these transactions. And they actually went as far as if you scroll down a little bit more, I think, not sure where you are on the page. Yep. They put the error correction engine. Nope, go back. They have different stages of error correction, which this is a common for error correction. Like it's, there's usually only a couple of bits or not where they should be. And then it's relatively easy to do that computation. Well, have multiple stages, and most of everything this drive could normally need to ever do is also in ASIC. Okay. For error correction.
Got it.
So error correction was one of the issues that remember the Samsung 840 drives, and they had that weird slowdown issue because the drives were kind of like spinning. If you let them sit for too long, the cell threshold or cell voltages levels would drift slightly, and like drive was like having a hard time doing reads. Remember that whole thing? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing probably wouldn't happen if you had your error correction hardware accelerated.
Okay.
Right? Anyway, and they have a thing called Spectrum Tiered Caching. It's just a creative, it's SLC caching.
Got it.
They're a little bit, they went into a bunch of detail when they briefed us on it, but it's basically, they're very aggressively empties the cache when the drive is idle. And it also does what's called direct-to-die writes, which means that once the cache is all the way full, if you're writing to it so quickly that the cache gets full and is not able to empty at the same time without sort of slowing down the writes at the host level, it kind of just changes gears and goes, okay, I'm going to leave what's in the SLC cache, just leave it there, and I'll do the rest of these writes straight to TLC, which it can still do reasonably fast, but obviously not as fast as it could to the cache. And then when the drive is finally idle later, it goes back and it cleans up the cache, so that your next writes are going quicker. So I would say just
where we're gonna jump to.
Go to performance focused on like either one of them just briefly, and I would just skip all the way down to the cache test just real quick to mention. Yep. This drive did some weird stuff with caching. So normally what we expect in these charts is a high speed for a few seconds, so on the left side of that chart, and then a drop to a low speed. In other words, direct-to-die TLC speed. We didn't see that with these. I don't understand why these drives just didn't like the way that we were writing to them. And all we're doing is sequential at QDEP4 writes. Okay. So there's nothing unique about it. It's just these drives didn't like that for some reason. Maybe they're
Interesting.
Maybe people have started tuning specifically to look for like QDEP32, which is what people would commonly do as a test. But the thing is, the OS almost never does QDEP that high. So, this is maybe the manufacturers are tuning for a very specific case, and our test just isn't that case. And if you scroll down one more chart, you'll notice that it did that same exact pattern. This is
Many
like
times.
6 different iterations of that same kind of a
that's interesting.
test. And basically those red lines dividing that chart is we're giving the drive more and more time to idle.
Oh, I
So,
see.
we don't normally publish this one, but I always do that as a test anyway to try to gauge how long it took the cache to empty. If it took a long time, right? In this case, it's just the same kind of weird pattern every single time.
So for these intervals, how much data are we talking about? I mean, it looks like it's a very, very fast write, but
Well, it's however much data the drive will take, right? Because it's a 60-second write to the drive, and then we'll stop. In the case of this, we'll stop for 3 seconds, and then we'll do it again. Then we'll stop for 5 seconds, do it again, and then towards the end of it, we're stopped for a minute and a half, which should be more than enough time for pretty much any SSD to empty its SLC cache.
Should be.
And even in that case, same exact pattern after the 90-second wait. So
the actual weights are increasing over time.
yeah, I do that on purpose. That's what the workload looks like.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the weights are not plotted because there's just nothing going on, right? So I'm basically like time compressing that, and you're just seeing what does that sequential write look like, 6 of them in a row, all next to each other. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, go ahead. Where am I going next?
It didn't seem to affect anything real world. It didn't seem to affect the actual performance of the drive. I would go straight to the client QDEP. Go to sequential and random.
I will do so.
Okay.
Oh, baby, go.
Sequential writes. These drives beat Samsung.
Okay.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Yeah. And that's a 960 Pro 2 terabyte that's dark red. That's a lot lower than the.
Right at 2 gigabytes per second.
Yeah. QDEP
Whereas these two drives are like 2.6.
Yeah. 2.6 to 2.7. Yeah. So right out of the gate, just
That'll be
performance. Holy crap. Okay. So now if you think about it, writing to the flash is something where those sequencers can accomplish their task without necessarily having to consult the CPU.
Right. They just don't have to wait for acknowledge and stuff.
It doesn't have to worry about doing flash translation layer stuff necessarily because you're writing to the SLC cache. You're not writing to the bulk media.
Okay.
Right. All right. Go down to next chart. You're going with sequential reads. Samsung wins here. So these drives are super performant on writes. On reads, not so much, but still competitive. Still reasonably fast. They were beating SSD 750 from Intel as an example. Doing decent. Burst random writes.
Sorry.
Next chart. Once again,
Wow.
kicking Samsung's butt.
Yeah.
Again, it's closer here, but still, these are faster.
They're winning.
And then burst random reads that chart's kind of hard to read. So just go to that next performance comparisons thing.
All right.
All right,
It's not to the page I care about where it has the dollar signs on it, but keep going.
No, we're not there yet. So
allow it.
focus on the blue bars here initially because those are more important. That's your actual like the kind of stuff you're going to feel, like your random read performance. They're very competitive, 19,300 ish for this compared to if you look at
20.9 on the Evo, 25K on the Pro.
960 Pro 2 terabytes at the very bottom. That's 25,000. But realize the Pro is an MLC drive. But if you compare it to the Evo, that's just under 21,000. So you're comparing 19.3 to 21. Right. That it's almost like that other review I can't talk about right now.
Correct.
Anyway,
that was one bullet point ago.
Yeah. You'll get it. You'll get it later. But now go back to that 4K random chart. Look at the random write performance.
Mhm.
101,000.
Beating those Evos down there.
It's beating the Evo. It's beating the Pro. It beats the 900p. It's not on that chart.
Oh,
I wrote it in the paragraph and a link to it.
Oh, got it.
It beats the Optane drives.
All right.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Right? Now, granted, this is random write performance, and that's not the thing that consumers are doing most of the time, but at least you don't have to worry about any writes causing any hiccups in your system because these drives can absorb random writes. Like, it's just insane how well that performance is. I wish they could do that with the reads. But, you know, like at the end of the day, it's flash memory, and it can only be so quick, right? Burst sequential, there you go. Those two red bars, sequential writes. It's just walking all over Samsung, even Samsung
Reads
MLC
a little bit
drives.
behind. But
Reads are a little bit behind. You know, but still, it's impressive, especially for writes.
Yeah.
I guess take a quick stop at the mixed burst thing, because that'll show you. Yeah, go to the next page.
All right.
That'll show you again how well those writes are, even though for this test they're background writes that the user normally wouldn't care about and notice anything, because the write speed is only like 20 meg per second average, and all these drives are going well over that. But there was less of a hit to the read performance during the background write workload on these two drives, the two new ones, compared to a 960 Evo. Right, so the 960 Evo actually, like, the gap is even closer now,
Right.
in the read performance compared to a 960 Evo, because, you know, the Evo has to work a little bit harder because its write speed is slower than these drives. Interesting stuff. So, go to your favorite part with the pricing.
Dollar signs. 10 cents a gig. 10 cents a gig.
No, it's not going to be 10 cents a gig. However,
Okay.
Under 50 cents a gig
Yeah.
is pretty competitive.
Yeah.
Especially when in some of the metrics, these drives are beating other SSDs from other manufacturers that are priced higher.
Right.
And then those guys price those drives higher because they're banking on people wanting the high performance. Well, these are priced lower with arguably similar performance.
Yeah.
Like trading blows performance.
Yeah.
Right.
That's impressive. It's been a long time since we've seen something like that.
Yeah. And especially for it to come out of Western Digital. Like what people are used to, a hard drive company.
Well,
Right.
they bought SanDisk as it
They
turned
did
out.
buy SanDisk.
You remember the first SSD?
The Black 2.
No.
Oh.
The WD Blue.
Yeah. I remember that
We
one.
used those. Didn't we
I
get some
remember
like
that one.
servers with those? I think AMD sent us Optron servers.
I think we had like two
WD Blues in
512
them.
gig or
They
256.
were 256. They were J Micron SSDs.
Yeah, but that was when that was like shit tons of flash storage.
I know.
So we used those things
Yeah,
for a
True.
long
Yeah.
time.
'Cause they
I
were
think as
huge.
like game drives and stuff
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
that controller was super stuttery on random access, but it was just a huge chunk of flash. Like just at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was, among the highest capacity SSDs you can
that's
get.
good.
Yeah, so I gave these drive editors choice. Realized those prices we were talking about there, those were the MSRPs.
Yeah.
Um,
What are they actually selling yet?
There's like $1 less.
Oh,
I have
okay.
this pick.
ooh,
Yeah.
the savings.
Well,
$1, eh?
More you buy, more you save.
savings.
All right.
Yeah, so very, very surprising out of Western Digital. I hope they keep it up. I hope they can make that write performance do the same thing that did, or the read performance do the same they did with the write performance in the future.
Yeah, sure. PFM. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, the writes are PFM, so
Hey, magic is magic, guys.
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Real quick, I'll just mention Maury did a review of a motherboard you can't buy in the US, but hey, it's got the word Lightsaber in it. It's the ECS Z370 Lightsaber motherboard.
This is Disney's favorite motherboard.
Somewhere in those traces is hidden a Mickey Mouse ears.
I was going to
Officially
say, is
endorsed.
this supposed to be the Mickey Mouse part right here? I don't think so. Also, this doesn't look like a lightsaber in any form to me that I can really dive through here.
But it's lead on the heat sink.
How do you get to use that word?
You don't sell it in the US, and you avoid American patent, or trademark.
You avoid the
I
Notice.
guess.
Yeah.
Copyright?
I mean, it was decent, right? But go check out the review if you live outside the U.S. and something you're interested in buying. I wouldn't. This is not like something I like. Oh man, you should go find your way to eBay and figure out a way to import this motherboard.
I mean, it's
into the US.
it's just a motherboard.
Hey,
It's
guess
a
what?
motherboard.
Some of our audience doesn't live in the U.S.
Yeah, I know.
That's true.
I know.
Hey, look at all those buttons at the bottom, though.
It's got a lot of buttons.
It's got buttons.
Look at those
Pushing
buttons.
your buttons, Maury.
Got buttons on the side.
CMOS battery replacement is pretty good.
Yeah.
I know.
Everyone needs a big red button.
No, it's kind of under the GPU,
wait.
isn't it?
Well,
Yeah.
you'd have to have a 2.5 slot card for it to be a problem.
Oh, okay.
Scroll down a little bit. I saw something.
Oh,
A
yeah.
little bit more.
If you see something, say
Click here to
something.
continue reading a review of the ECS Z97 machine motherboard.
Oh, Maury.
How long has he
Maury.
been copy pasting
Maury,
that?
this template. Oh no.
Where's the link go?
Oh,
It probably
ooh.
goes to the Z97 review.
No, it goes the right way. He did
okay.
update
That's
the
good.
link,
That's
if
good.
nothing else. All right, good to know.
Poor guy.
So here's an aside.
Okay.
Because this has a SPDIF port or a Toslink port on top of the USB on the second
Yep, right
power
here.
there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Yep.
So why haven't boards adopted the whole hybrid optical 1/8-inch TRS jack that's used a lot on dongles
How many
nowadays?
people do you know that actually use the optical?
I do.
I mean, they've got
Oh, okay,
room
we got one.
to put
So,
the full size one.
It has to come with the cable.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't have to come with it.
It has to come with and the adapter plug thing.
It doesn't
Which
have
is like
to.
30 cents.
I guess.
Like there are plenty of all notebooks use that have optical out use that
3.
connector, and they don't come with the adapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4,
Should.
5. All right, you're not alone. There's about a half dozen people that do.
They're liars, all of them.
I bet they have optical drives.
All of them, liars.
I do have an optical
Yeah.
drive. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Of course,
Oh,
you got
I
an
know.
optical drive.
Do you run the cable
goodness.
from your?
No, it's what I use to sit my TV on
You
top
run the
of.
audio cable out of the optical
the old
drive
MPC
to the-
cable?
No.
I just
no.
had to run optical drives this week actually.
Optical cables. not
Optical
drives.
cables.
Sorry, yeah, optical drives. Yeah, no, definitely didn't do that. What am I, an idiot?
Yep.
Anyway, let's move on. Intel. This is a NUC. It's not a brand new NUC, and so this is not something that's like better or greater than the Hades Canyon we saw.
Well, it's new. It's just in a different market segment.
But okay, sure. It is your standard NUC size NUC. It is
Yeah.
the NUC 7i7DNHE.
Okay.
The Dawson
Rolls off
Creek.
the tongue.
Which is very
Dawson
confusing
Canyon.
because this has an 8th generation processor.
Dawson Canyon. What did I say? I said
You
Creek.
said
Sorry.
Dawson's Creek.
I
And now we've learned something we didn't want to know about Ryan.
before I put this review in the system, I Control F to see if I said Dawson's Creek anywhere.
That's pretty good. I
think
totally
I found
did
it
not
one
do that
place.
on purpose. But that's pretty good. Anyway, Dawson's Canyon. Core i7-8650U Kaby Lake refresh. So this is a quad-core hyper-threaded part. Intel UHD graphics, no discrete graphics in here. Wireless 802.11ac, gigabit Ethernet, 2 HDMI ports. One of them more interesting than the other. We'll talk about as well.
So let's get this out of the way. This is a quote unquote business enterprise NUC. This isn't
that
necessarily
mean?
in their consumer oriented lineup.
Anything
Not
play
meant for
that out in
gaming.
terms of specific?
I think the IO is like there's an interesting thing with the IO which we can get to. There's like an expansion slot for adding things like serial or USB. So these NUC motherboards always have a bunch of headers because they get used in different integrations and different casings. So you have like an RS-232 header
Hold
on the board.
Go back up. Look
Right
at
here, I'm looking at this.
No. Wait. Go back up. That is cool.
Actually, that's awful
Oh, it is.
compared to the previous NUCs.
That's not the feet of the. Or
So-
the feet, not thumb screws that open the.
Yeah.
That's how all NUCs have worked for several
Yeah,
generations.
that's how they've been.
However,
I just think that's cool.
what I'm showing here is the SATA and the SATA power cable, which is that little tiny ribbon connector, which is pretty fragile.
Oh.
The cables aren't long enough for you to sit both sides side by side, so you have to disconnect it. The previous NUCs with hard drives, the cables were long enough where you could just kind of put it off to the side,
Lay it open.
so you could install your RAM. Which is
Yeah.
like that little tiny power connector. If you're in this thing like a couple of times, you might pull that off the board. Like
Oh.
it doesn't take a lot of torque
Is it
to
a proper SATA power
pull it up.
connector, or is it something?
No, it's like that. You can see
Yeah.
that little weird like 5 or 6 pin connector right there.
Okay, that's what I thought
Also, I
it was.
SATA data connector, but
Yeah.
So that was a bit
Yeah.
weird compared to other NUCs.
Okay. And then there's this serial port.
So
add-on
there's like
thing.
a serial header on the motherboard. There's USB 3 header. There are a bunch of different headers, and
So
they
I can
kind of have this
connect my game
expansion
controller.
system now. So
Okay.
for enterprises that need specific, like you can get one with 3 USB ports, I think, on it, or serial. Like if you need to integrate this into a specific Like if you need it to have serial to control some industrial machinery and you just want a standalone thing, you can use it for that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it only has 4 USB ports. It doesn't have audio out besides HDMI. It doesn't have optical or analog audio out.
That's definitely a business thing.
Yeah, so it's in their business line and isn't quite very consumery. I mean, you could use this.
Right.
There's nothing stopping you.
So what about these 2 HDMI ports I'm looking at? One of them is labeled protected UHD. What is that telling me?
So this is kind of an interesting thing that Intel's done in their UEFI. There are 3 options. There's just a kind of disabled normal operation. There's a headless mode, and then there's a display emulation mode. And what display emulation mode is it always shows having a 1080p monitor connected. So if you're remoting into this thing a lot, you know how sometimes you have issues where if you don't have a display connected to a machine and you try to remote in, you get like a 640 by 480 display.
My favorite.
And this fixes that because Windows always or Linux always thinks it has a 1080p display connected. So when you remote in, it will be full resolution.
Oh, if you're doing like a Linux.
Okay.
Or Windows. I've seen this happen with Windows before. So you don't have to use like the mirror driver that you like in VNC or anything. Yeah. So if you're using RDP a lot, using VNC a lot, it's kind of an interesting thing for running a headless machine.
Interesting. Okay. That's it. I think we brought this up recently. What were we talking about when we were talking about like headless machines?
We talked about VNC and the mirror driver. It was Allyn's pick.
Oh, that's right.
That's
what it was.
A couple months ago.
So this is kind of a hardware fix for that. So you don't have to worry about stuff like that. Okay.
Tight VNC, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So system performance wise,
Ultra VNC.
What did this look like?
So it was pretty impressive. This is the first machine we've seen with the 8650U, although I just purchased a Surface Book 2 that has it, so that review will be incoming and be an interesting comparison point.
Mm-hmm.
However, the XPS 13 pulls away. That new XPS 13, the 9370, I think they run up around 24, 28 watts at some point on that U-series part, so they're just getting monstrous performance out of it.
Yeah.
It does level out in some more sustained tests like handbrake.
Handbrake takes a long time to run. Yeah. So yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a quad-core hyper-threaded NUC.
It's the highest performance NUC in this form factor we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, these are generally not inexpensive parts. Where does this one fall in that range?
I believe this is $599 for the kit, which is also why this is way more business-oriented, because if you look at the Baby Canyon NUCs, which is the worst name in the world, you can get a 7th gen U-series 28 watt part with Iris Pro graphics and Thunderbolt 3 for like $300 to $400 for the bare bones kit.
Okay.
So you're paying a lot more for the extra sort of performance and the business features.
Got it. Well, the Baby Canyon's a 2-core 4-thread.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're also 28 watt parts with Iris graphics. So you are getting a little more there over this.
Yeah.
Intel, for some reason, hasn't launched. It doesn't really seem like they're going to launch a Kaby Lake Refresh consumer NUC. I'd love to see one with Thunderbolt 3.
It seems more like we're waiting for Coffee Lake.
Cannon Lake.
You don't think they're going to do Coffee Lake versions of this?
No.
I don't know.
I don't think there's going to be a Coffee Lake U-series part. I think they'll skip to Cannon Lake.
I don't know anything. I don't know. Usually, it's interesting because usually we can kind of use like leaked NUC roadmaps to tell us about the future of what these 15-watt parts are actually going to do, right? So, check out that review. That's the Dawson Canyon, not Dawson's Creek, NUC.
I was waiting for it.
I had to look at the review page again just to be sure. Also, real quick, I'll mention this. If you're interested in the Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus, Sebastian did a review of that. This is I think this is the first phone we have using the Snapdragon 845, and one of the first ones. I think a Sony one came out before this. Really nice phone, impressive specs, 6.2-inch, 2960 by 1440 AMOLED. You got the Snapdragon 845 in there, Adreno 630, 6 gigs of RAM, up to 256 gigs of storage. It's got the Snapdragon X20 LTE modem what's the X20 do? 1.2 gigabits per second, 8211 AC, 3500 milliamp hour battery, Android 8. What's that? That's Oreo, right? Yeah.
And the most important part, a headphone jack.
It does have a headphone jack.
Oh, sweet.
USB Type-C. Again, same form factor that we had seen previously. God, these screens are so impressive. Sebastian spends a lot of time on the performance benchmarks. CPU wise, it is behind only the A11 Bionic used in the 8 Plus and iPhone 10.
Shocking no one.
Shocking no one. Yeah, true. But in the graphics performance, it is, he says as he scrolls, the GPU performance, it's tying or beating what Apple's been able to do with its part as well. So like, the ES 3.0
Nice.
Manhattan performance is a significant step above what the A11 Bionic can do. But if you look at some other tests, more synthetics, the ALU specific testing, the T-Rex ES 2.0 testing has them neck and neck. So there's some interesting dynamics there in the graphics side of things, but impressive GPU work on the part for sure. Usage, camera's great. I don't think there's any arguing around that now. I guess the P20, the Huawei P20 might have come away and taken its crown and whatnot. But
That's a good photo.
yeah,
Yeah,
What's that white stuff on the ground?
it's called global warming. It's called global warming.
What kind of tree is that?
a dead one.
Dead tree.
No, it's a hibernating tree. I don't know. Battery life was good, not great. Apparently didn't beat the S8 Plus running in 1080p mode, which I guess kind of makes sense. You just didn't have enough time to run the S9 Plus and the associated
12-hour plus battery test. As it turns out, take a lot of time to run.
Yeah, you got to wait for it to charge. Sometimes they error out. Yeah, there's a lot of complication there. So check out that review if you're interested in the S9 Plus from a performance technology standpoint, as opposed to user interface.
I
necessarily.
really like the 845 chip.
Yeah.
It's a nice balance of performance and I mean, especially sometime you and I will have to compare and contrast that and the Samsung Exynos and
We do.
Go on kind of an architectural level on that. But I think that those ARM guys did some good stuff. Though it's interesting that they still can't quite get to that level of Apple, but we're talking thermals, battery, and just
It's a
overall
complicated equation.
It is.
Yeah.
Plus, did you use a 5-volt DC brushless fan to cool it?
No, I left
he
it
was
on the
away?
air conditioning duct.
Oh, okay.
That's what you do,
As one does.
as one does.
Yes.
Does it seem weird that there are no other 845 phones? Like, I think you mentioned there might be that Sony that's out, but like, I can't remember how the cycle normally goes with this
Because
stuff.
they're going into laptops, Ken.
I don't know the answer to that
As we'll talk
question,
about
to
later.
be fair.
I think it's about 3 months after we see kind of the flagship
Samsung's
Samsung
usually
that
first.
has
yeah.
Right.
cutting
It feels like
edge
there should
stuff.
be more
and then-
phones
I would
out
agree
right
with
now.
that.
Maybe it's a little early for that.
I'd agree, though. We'll find out soon. All right, let's take a quick break here, everybody. We've got to thank today's podcast sponsor. That's right. It's my new friends at Simple Contacts. This episode of the PC Perspective podcast is brought to you by Simple Contacts, an easy and convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription or reorder your contacts from anywhere within minutes. Get $30 off your first Simple Contacts order by visiting simplecontacts.com/PCPer and enter promo code PCPer. Now, what is Simple Contacts? Obviously, you guys want to know this. This is it's one of the more interesting applications, I was going to say of the internet, but that's kind of
It solves a problem you've been about for
so
4
much,
years.
so much.
Yeah.
I've complained so much. So I wear contact lenses. I don't want to say I despise doctors. I despise having to be on a doctor's schedule, making an appointment, going and doing all that stuff. So I dread doing the renewals. That's why I was actually legitimately excited to try this new sponsor of Simple Contacts. It's an app and it's a website that basically allows me to reorder my lenses, get a prescription update from the app, from the website.
Hold on.
Yeah.
What?
It does. Simple Contacts brings the doctor's office to your home. The vision test is designed by doctors, and every test is carefully reviewed by a doctor. So here's how it works. If you have the app, you put the app, you stand it up on a table, and it tells you to step back 10 feet and do an eye test.
Huh.
And it records the video of you doing it so that they know whether or not you read the letters correctly.
Whether or not you covered your eye.
Yeah, and you get the camera close to you, and it has you look up and all up, down, left, right, in directions, looking for redness in your eyes.
Oh.
It submits all that, and then within 24 hours, you get a response back from a doctor.
Because that's really all the doctor's doing anyway, right? Like,
Yeah, look, I'm not going to here denigrate medical professionals, but yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
A little bit of that. Now, they do say that this is not a replacement for, a more in-depth eye medical health exam that they recommend every 4 years.
Right. But if everything is fine and your vision hasn't been changed, like you're just, you're just like, I just need more contacts.
Simple Contacts offers an amazing selection with every brand of lenses, and their prices are hard to beat. The eye exam is just $20, and they offer free shipping. As I said, not a replacement for a periodic full eye health exam. I went through this, right? They basically said, hey, they want to sponsor the podcast, and I, as always do, I want to see the services and test them out. And I did it. I did mine from the laptop, not through the app, but through the website, where it uses the webcam, turns it on, says step back 10 feet, read this. Did the eye test on it.
Compensating for the size of the screen? What are they?
So it's really cool, actually. You hold up a credit card and you drag a square, so it's the exact same size as a credit card, and then it knows what the scale is to adjust on your resolution and stuff. Yeah,
Clever.
It's a really interesting thing. So I imagine a lot of you guys are out there wearing contacts. If you want to save $30 on your first Simple Contacts order, go to simplecontacts.com/PCPer and enter the code PCPer at checkout. Again, $30 off your first order when you go to simplecontacts.com/PCPer, enter promo code PCPer at checkout, and we thank them for their support of the PC Perspective podcast and making my life a little bit easier for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
I work contacts.
There you go. You should go to simplecontacts.com/PCPer, enter promo code PCPer for $30 off your first order, Josh.
Josh, where are your contacts?
$30.
You wearing contacts right now?
Those glasses are just for
Think
style.
of it as $29.99.
Oh, I see.
I'm sold.
All right, let's move on to some news items. Run through these. If you're listening to this in the recorded version, we've already talked about the the Ryzen 2700X, 2600X processor review. Asus is planning an ROG Strix X470i mini ITX board. Look at that thing; it's so tiny.
What's that little thing over the middle of the? Is it just protecting?
I guess it's just it's holding the arm down, maybe.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Russians are condom.
But it's not really protecting anything because there's no pins there. I'm with you, Josh.
Well, I mean, it's not pins, but there's a bunch of little caps and resistors underneath that.
You don't want to get anything in your holes.
Oh.
No. Don't worry about the holes because, can you bend a hole? I mean, don't try.
You get some stuff stuck in there.
You try hard enough.
This is terrible. What we're doing now.
Usually.
What's all the writing next to the... You gotta, click on it and...
What am I looking at?
Next to the logo, there's like a whole...
Game ROG. Haven't you ever, applied vinyl to your car? And so you've got to have everybody who ever touched your car.
I'm getting my cast signed is what it looks like to me.
They sticker mod this thing so it goes faster?
Does it say 1, 2...
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what the speed is for.
1, 2, 4, 7,
It's
9...
Brembo PCIe slots.
I think it's in parentheses. 25.12479.121.471475.
Put numbers there to put numbers there?
Man, BIOS codes are getting annoying.
That's going to get you a lot of extra horsepower.
It's a very important number you wouldn't understand.
So if you win an e-gaming, do you get contingency money for having that on there?
Hopefully.
Probably not.
Does that M.2 heatsink have an RGB LED in it?
Kind of looks.
Oh my god!
I mean, maybe.
Yes.
Finally,
maybe it's a drive activity light. Think about it.
I mean,
that should be pretty cool.
If that's what it is, it'd be cool.
That'd be pretty cool. It's probably not, but it would be pretty cool.
Yeah, probably not.
There's an impressive list of features on this. RGB. I said already.
Yeah.
Asus Aura Sync, not just RGB.
Yeah, well, that's true. Full PCIe by 16, an extra USB 3.0 header, 2 DIMMs, obviously. Not enough space for anything else in that, but you've got DIMM slots. Or 2 SATA, 1 NVMe. There's not a picture of the back. There's only one NVMe M.2 slot, right?
Likely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, still pretty impressive. I know a lot of people love these
compact,
mini ITX boards.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Love it.
That'll fill you up.
Get that Strix brand, everything. Here are some interesting rumors. Intel apparently decided to leak themselves the 8-core Coffee Lake S processor Ken, is that right?
Yeah, so on the Intel technical documentation website, which I'm not sure why it publicly lists the available documents. It's a whole other thing, because if you try to click to download the documents, you get transferred to an Intel login, as you would expect. But they started listing some Coffee Lake S 8+2 documents, like the processor power integrity model document. Whatever the hell that is.
You know, you got to have processor power integrity.
Yeah.
This is good information for motherboard vendors to build.
Why is this listed on a public website?
It's probably not supposed to be, you know. But yeah, it's for power delivery optimization is what the description
The other
says.
sort of interesting thing is if you look at the next screenshot, it mentions Coffee Lake S 6+2 and 8+2 in the same document. So that kind of the theory would be that there's going to be some level of compatibility there.
Yeah.
Because we've heard rumors of a Z390 chipset. So hopefully Z370 boards get an update.
Do I assume that the +2 is the GPU configuration?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
As far as I know.
Got it. So
Do you really think that's happening, Ken?
If the 8-core doesn't have a higher TDP, then I think it will happen. I think there's just so much.
I think you're being optimistic.
the question is
I think
whether
they've
or not
gotten
it's going to
so
support
much
the
shit
same
about
platform.
it that they realize that they have to release a Z370
So
update.
you say in this post, Ken, that it seems likely these new processors will launch alongside a Z390 chipset or something like that,
which
right?
has been heavily rumored and leaked
for a
as
long
well.
time.
Yeah, but I think we'll see the Z370 compatibility. Maybe
think?
it's just optimistic, but
I don't share your optimism.
yeah.
Are we ever going to get away from
No.
this new motherboard for every damn CPU thing? Like, what the heck is going on with this lately?
Intel's loving it.
Well, I mean, to be frank, this is what happens when your roadmap gets disrupted,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Suddenly you're releasing things out of cadence than what you had planned to do,
Right.
and it forces you to do things you wouldn't normally do. And qualifying things takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
So I understand it. You can blame AMD for it, I guess is what I'm saying.
Fair.
You can blame AMD for your Intel
Intel's
processor
problems.
cadence being out of whack. So,
Damn you, AMD, being too fast with your processors.
Jeremy, tell me about this post you have here linking to a TechSpot story. It's running Qualcomm as a snap with the HP Envy X2. This is the Qualcomm / ARM powered device running Windows, right?
Yep. With full emulation, having no issues whatsoever.
All right.
Which is, in and of itself, a very impressive thing, because the first go of ARM-powered laptops were, to say it was a disappointment is perhaps understating just what people experienced when they did it.
Mm-hmm.
And they ran through a bunch of tests, absolutely no problems playing any programs or games that they gave it a shot at. So, I mean, you've got great compatibility going on, which is technically impressive. But they went for a very odd form factor. So this thing is entirely metal, Gorilla Glass, Bang & Olufsen speakers, and a price tag of $1,000.
Yeah, it's pricey.
Which it's
too much money.
It's twice as much as it should be.
Yeah, I mean, even my expectations were kind of in the $700 range.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But it's just sort of phone pricing and phone design, but blown up to a laptop.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
It is.
Click through and look at the pictures, but it's an odd duck, because you're looking at sort of a value performance in a golden case. It just,
Yeah.
I'm sure someone's going to buy it. It's just, I'm not quite sure who.
I mean, there's a premium here on the extended battery life. There's a premium on the connectivity, but you are running in like Core M3 kind of range performance levels.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, the benchmarks do not turn out well for
the
it.
benchmarks are not good. Like the performance benchmarks, application benchmarks are, I would call them bad, especially in this TechSpot article. Now, I would argue that doing video compression or video rendering on this type of Core M devices, it's a metric, right? Like it's worthwhile to have
it's a
that
bad
testing,
idea, because
but
the
it's not.
XPSS 13 actually did better.
Well, of course, yeah. But it's
On the battery.
it's not. Oh, gotcha. But it's not really like you're not going to do a lot of video editing on your Core M3 device, just like you're not going to do it on your Qualcomm Snapdragon device either. So
Been out here hitting on the receptionist for 3 hours. What the hell are you doing? Oh, I'm rendering. And it's just taking a while.
Oh, is that the excuse you give? Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's good. Microsoft apparently took a mulligan. It released a build to RTM, which, by the way, what's that stand for, Ken?
Ready to manufacture.
Right, which used to be something they did when they stamped discs, I guess.
Yeah. And now, apparently, it's meaningless.
Because they just recalled it, apparently. So was this supposed to be RS4?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be. I don't think it got to the, like, it wasn't pushed, obviously.
No, I think it was.
It was only pushed to insiders.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes. The
okay.
insider ring got it.
Yeah.
And got a lot of blue screens of death immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
But by this time in the week, it was supposed to be like wide rollout for 1803 for RS4.
Huh.
So that would have been pushed out, but they delayed it.
Interesting.
And then they came out with, this is rare, but they came out with another build, not adding any other features. It's just like a bug fix build.
Oh God, oh God, oh God.
Yeah, so it's only incremented by 1 digit.
This time the RTM has released this, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's on the fast ring now, supposedly.
And nobody here was affected by that?
No.
I saw a couple people tweet out that they had blue screens and stuff, but
And they did say like
could you recover from that?
It wasn't like an epidemic. It was just higher occurrence of blue screens.
Yeah.
Right.
What happens when your QA department is the people?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in their defense, it was fast ring. You have to opt in, like for, hey, I basically want to run betas. You know,
Sure.
I mean, come on.
But they
you would hope
kind
your
of planned on
RTM software
releasing this.
wouldn't have
Now.
a bug like this.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Alan, you have a little bit of quick news here on the Toshiba refreshing of its hard drive branding. Does this make it simpler for me? More simple?
Not if
Are you
used to the-
colorblind?
Well,
No.
okay. So
Good.
they added colors. Gee, have we ever seen this? Anybody else do this before? Colors for
I
hard
haven't.
drives?
No, I haven't.
And then their colors are completely different. And like they have a blue, but it's a video streaming drive. They have a green, but it's a high-end surveillance drive. So it's like, I don't know. That's confusing.
yeah.
However,
I want
put that
the
aside. I mean, all their stuff before was just a bunch of numbers. So it's like, okay, at least they're making an effort to try to like, make things clear.
Okay.
Just like I just want a performance desktop drive. I'll look for the one with the gray label on it, right? Like, okay. But they did introduce 2 new models.
Oh, okay. It's not just complete rebranding.
No, it's not. So there is a video streaming specific device. This is supposed to be for like DVRs and like set-top boxes and that sort of thing. Only goes up to 3 terabytes. So it's not necessarily a huge drive, but the idea is it's really low power, really low heat production. So you put this in your fanless, like again, a DVR, those things kind of tend to run hot already. You don't
Put
need
them in cabinets and stuff.
Yeah, you put them in you don't need a hard drive, adding another bunch of heat to that. So that's fine. They have something we found interesting in their release was there is an annual workload rating of that drive of 72 terabytes per year.
That's interesting.
That doesn't seem like a whole lot.
Well, that's not bad if the drive is no more than 3 terabytes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, really, how many times are you like in a DVR, how many times are you overwriting the entire like drive? You'd have to be recording every show possible that your DVR had tuners like continuously and lapping the thing constantly, right?
Well,
So
are you talking compressed video streaming or like 4K uncompressed YUV streaming?
oh, I mean,
Well, not
you're
to a
right.
hard drive.
You're right there. But
Yeah,
you probably would. Yeah, you probably wouldn't be writing that to a hard drive. But so I don't have that much of an issue with the blue one. However, the green one is supposed to be a much higher end streaming recording type drive. This one is spec'd to be able to handle 64 simultaneous surveillance HD video streams.
Watching you.
Like that's a lot. That's a lot of data coming in and a lot of parallel streams. So obviously there has to be firmware on the drive that can handle that without the drive just seeking endlessly, trying to find, trying to seek to all these different locations at the same time. It kind of does what an SSD does, and it's able to like remap where the sectors are. So the drive itself is writing more sequential while it has, these parallel streams coming in that would actually normally look like a random right?
Okay.
So that's good and everything. Available all the way up to 10 terabytes. It's designed for like arrays, like, you know, you could have a huge surveillance array, like RAID with a bunch of these drives in it, you know, because 64 HD streams is going to kind of add up pretty quickly. So you need a lot of capacity there if you want to have any kind of historical record of all those streams. So it's, you know, has
How many bathrooms
vibration.
are there in the church?
Has vibration sensors, like what the has vibration sensors built into it, so they can handle having a lot of these in one chassis. In other words, you get, you know, harmonics and vibrations of all the drives spinning in the same small enclosed space, right? So that's all very kind of enterprisey style features, which is all great. But then there is a workload rating of 150 terabytes per year in a model that comes up to 10 terabytes of capacity. So, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Because once you get to the point where you start doing arrays, like, and anybody that's properly maintaining an array, like our array at the office, every 2 weeks, that thing scrubs the whole array front to back. It does a sequential read of all drives, beginning to end, right? That workload, like that kind of standard practice setup that we did even in our office here, if we were using these drives, granted, these are for video surveillance and we're using it for data storage, but like if we had those drives in there, we would be voiding their rating. Because if you read like 10 terabyte drive, if you read it every 2 weeks, that's more than 150 terabytes per year.
So does the rating scale with the capacity?
I don't know. We don't have that information yet. But if they said the rating is 150 terabytes per year and it comes up to 10 terabytes,
yeah, right? I'm just thinking like you could potentially be better off getting the smaller drives in a bigger array because you could write them more times. Yes. See, it's like it's really weird. And what was more confusing to me about that was like I was thinking maybe it's like sort of like how SSDs are, where it's based on how much writing you do. Yeah, but it's not. It's based on host activity. Oh, so reads and writes.
Reads and writes.
That seems awful for surveillance purposes.
Well, I mean, you could argue for surveillance, you're not necessarily reading the stuff back all the time.
You might have a monitor with 4 cameras displaying all the time that's going through the IP system.
But that's not scrubbed off the drive.
Yeah, I mean, it should just be getting the streams as it comes across. My point is, you're probably not reading it back that much, aside from arrays that are doing consistency checking, like parity checking and stuff. Because you want to make sure when you do want to get your video that one of your drives hasn't had some bad sectors or something. That's why you scrub data, right? Because if it's just constantly recording video streams, if you never go back and try to read it ever, it might not be there. if you waited like 4 or 5 years or something, there could have been a bunch of bad sectors by that point. That's why you scrub arrays. So yeah, that rating seems weird to me. I haven't seen that kind of a rating on anything. Like, why would you suddenly mean like you can only do this so much? That's a thing for SSDs because you're wearing the thing out. Hard drives.
It's like one of the advantages hard drives have.
Yeah, like hard drives, you're supposed to be able to rewrite them bunches of times and read them like almost indefinitely over and over again without issue, right? Yeah. So interesting points there. Pricing, they're competitive. Pretty competitive actually. 10 terabytes for $350. But remember, again, it's a video surveillance workload specific drive. Don't go installing Windows to this thing. It's not going to behave nicely.
I know you say that 10 terabyte.
I watch things through my Windows.
10 terabyte drives for $349 is reasonably priced, and I believe you. And I believe you.
Yeah.
However, having just had a discussion with somebody in this office about purchasing 6 12 terabyte WD Golds.
How much were they?
I was with a significant discount, like $2,200 for the hard drives
for 6 of them.
And I was like, holy gee! Like, it never occurred to me like to fill a RAID array, to fill a NAS. You got to spend thousands of dollars if you want like that kind of capacity.
Well, we spent that filling that array.
Yeah, well, it felt like we were getting one over because we bought drives and shucked them.
Drives, right.
And that was a deal. Like, we got a deal at the time. And it was still a lot of money. I mean, that adds up when you got to buy 16 of them.
16 and $150 a pop.
Yeah.
So just about. Yeah.
They're, as a saying,
hard drives are supposed to be cheap. I don't.
No. Hard drives are cheap, but storage is not.
Yeah.
Sure, fair.
Yeah.
But my expectations were hard drives were cheap. Therefore, the idea of spending $2,000 on hard drives is impossible. And apparently that's not the case.
Because you need a bunch. It adds up.
Apparently it's not the case.
when you multiply 'em.
So there you go.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting stuff. And one last thing. Speaking of storage again, Western Digital launched the Ultrastar DC, which I think stands for data center, HC 530, which stands for I don't know.
Neither do I.
TDMR, I don't know what that stands for.
Two-dimensional magnetic recording.
Okay.
Oh, it's not that 3D hard drive?
Yeah, no, we're not there yet.
14 terabyte hard drive.
Two-dimensional is such a weird thing to...
Like X and Y.
The HC probably stands for high capacity.
What's the 530 stand for, though?
I mean, yeah, but the 530 doesn't... I don't think it corresponds
It was the
with,
time in which
anything.
the branding was finalized.
Yeah.
If only
530
those drives could float.
Yeah. So the two-dimensional magnetic recording thing, that's a concept where you remember the Kenwood?
I thought TDMR meant
wasn't
too
it
dumb,
Kenwood?
mustn't read.
Do you remember the Kenwood optical drive?
God, we talk about this once every quarter on this podcast.
The True X
forget that one.
CD-ROM drive, right? That drive had a bunch of, it could split the beam into 7 tracks. The idea is you could read 7 tracks at once. TDMR does something kind of sort of the same, except it has multiple heads trying to read the same track.
Yeah.
So the idea is if the head's slightly off, or if the track is super narrow, because we keep writing narrower and narrower tracks, trying to get density higher and higher, right? It's harder to lock in. And also, it helps if you had a second track slightly offset. Helps to increase your signal noise ratio for you're actually trying to read this extremely minute, magnetic fields now, really tiny domains. Anyway, so it's just another one of those tricks they use to make the density higher, right? Other than that, they're just kind of like your standard. This is the equivalent of an RE that Western Digital used to make, your enterprise grade. What's now gold, but now this is sort of like a next step above even their gold drives.
And here I remember 128 meg buffer being huge.
Yeah, this is 512.
512.
Yeah, so half a gig buffer.
That's the first time we've seen
Hard
512,
drive
right?
used to be that big.
Say again, Ken?
That's the first time we've seen 512, right?
That's the first time we've seen 512.
Yeah.
We saw 256 in the newer version of the Reds.
8 terabyte Reds.
And then there was
probably 10
128
terabytes.
in the ones that we have in our array, the slightly older style, design. But yeah, pretty big buffer, 7200 RPM drives. Seek times it's a hard drive, like hard drive seek times. But notice the sequential transfer rate rating, 267 meg per second. Now, granted, they didn't say it, but it's the start of the disk, right? Because hard drives slow down as you get to the end of the area. That's faster than 3 gigabit SATA.
Huh.
So now hard drives are finally faster than that middle generation SATA 2, right?
But only on the inside.
But only on the inside, only at the beginning.
Initial J microns with the stuttering.
Yeah. So that's just impressive to note that hey, that's pretty fast in a straight line, right? We don't have pricing, but they're sampling huge. This is for your crazy cloud providers that just have insane amounts of storage.
Yeah.
But yeah, not using shingle magnetic tricks, not using MAMR yet. That microwave assisted.
So what do you think? Just end of the year we see consumer drives, maybe at least golds.
Well, I mean, I don't know. This is really
They're going to be $8.99 though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have not filled up my 4 terabyte game drive yet.
Sounds like you should get a better internet connection.
Well, I live in Wyoming. Come on.
Josh, 4 terabyte. I mean, your game drive, you can queue 5 or 6 things on Steam and it'll fill that thing up, man. Come on.
I must be playing the wrong games.
Yeah, you're playing the wrong games.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean,
Custer's Revenge is only 32K.
Good to see 14 terabytes in a parallel magnetic.
Worth every single byte of it, too.
Josh is
Exactly.
still playing Commander Keen.
Oh.
All
right. That it?
Yeah, no.
Let's do it. Picks of the week. Here we go. So over this past week, my wife and daughter were in Florida at the beach without me. I don't know what that says about me, but take it for what you will. But however, I use this opportunity of free time to completely replace the entertainment center, replace the TV, redo all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
So finally implementing, getting rid of cable, getting rid of all that.
The TV that's been over
TV
there.
that's been over there for a while is now gone.
A year, wasn't
It's
it?
like a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have more room now.
Well,
I mean, it was a very thin TV.
The box for the TV is still here, I noticed.
Yeah, we need to get rid of that box.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you get rid of that box later. We got to save the box. But anyway, so as part of it, we were putting things behind cabinet doors as opposed to being out in the open. So we were using IR blasters and repeaters and stuff. And so my universal remote that I'd been using was the Logitech Harmony 880 that I legitimately can tell you that I purchased in 2002.
Yeah, that was an old remote.
Maybe 2003.
A nice remote.
It's a 14 or 15-year-old remote.
Yeah.
And the display was display was fading. It was hard to see anything on it. Whatever, it didn't matter. But I decided, okay, we're upgrading everything else. Let's upgrade this too. So I looked it up, and the latest Harmony is the Elite, which is a remote control with a hub, and it works on your phone as well. So this is the idea now is actually the remote doesn't even talk to the hub through IR. It's all Wi-Fi.
Right.
So you don't. I actually think I'm going to love this because my wife is horrible about, like, in the old Harmony, she'd hit the button for like watch TV and then set it on the couch facing the wrong way.
Oh,
so
yeah.
that like half of the IR signals didn't make it to the devices they're supposed to make it to.
So only half the stuff would turn on.
Now it doesn't matter because she can hit the watch TV button on it.
Yeah.
And it does it on
the
Wi-Fi.
The hub does everything.
The hub and the IR transmitters
blasters.
that you can place inside the units.
Yeah.
Take care of all that for you.
I think there's 2 jacks in the back of the hub that for two IR blasters.
And they're pretty wide.
Yeah.
Angle, and the hub itself blasts out the IR too. So if the hub is like sitting just in front of your TV, you don't have to have one sitting in front of your TV, for example.
And it's actually so powerful that anytime, like I have had not this version, but I've had the one with the keyboard.
Yeah.
Right. Same hub though. That hub is like up against my wall, the same wall that the TV is flush mounted on.
Yeah.
So the way that the TV actually sees the IR is because that hub is lighting up the whole room.
Yeah.
And it's basically bouncing off of everything else.
Like an IR camera shot of what that does, just how big
flashing the room, basically.
You can bring in a pit viper and see how he reacts to all that.
Why do you know this? Yeah. Why?
They see
Pit
an IR.
vipers because they see an infrared.
Okay.
They've got 2 little sensors on their nose.
Yeah.
They're called pits.
I didn't know that. Now this is an expensive system. I think the retail price is $349. I went to Best Buy yesterday and it was on sale for $249. So I picked it up there. I went through the setup process. It's a little bit clunky in the setup process. I'm using to control Shield, Denon receiver, the LG TV. I connected it to my Nest so I can control the thermostat that way. Although, whatever.
The future.
But it will control.
When you lose it, can you ask it where it is and it'll tell you?
No.
Oh.
No, but you can just shout at Alexa and it'll do all the stuff.
That's true.
You heard
Fair
this.
enough.
True. Yeah.
Yeah, so does it matter if you lose your remote?
No, because you can use the app on your phone and it will do all the same stuff. Right? You set up all the same activities and all that.
Time.
That way.
So, quick story. The Echo heard us today, like saying not the word, but it still heard us, and then it responded, and we did our typical no, and then she comes back after it says more stuff, which usually doesn't happen, but she goes, "Sorry, I could not find no
In the contacts.
It was like, That's, if you say no, we probably don't want you to talk to us anymore. Anyway.
So I overall, I think I've had it 20 hours or something like that. But the setup was not perfect, but better than what I had to deal with the Logitech 880 and this legacy website, and you had to download this Java-based app. Yeah, and it was rough.
The only thing I don't like about it now is it relies on their servers.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's how it does the syncing between like the changes you make on the phone and sending it to the hub.
Yeah, so the hub has to.
And one day
pull
their certificate will expire and it will be bricked.
Yeah, so the hub has to pull its config from Logitech.
Are you telling me that the likelihood of me having this remote for the next 15 years is minimal?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if they discontinue it, then they're going to piss a lot of people off. But ask
your buddy.
You've done it before.
Science.
Yeah.
Science.
I don't think it has a G logo on it.
That's true. He's the gaming guy.
And I think you can
That's
actually,
true.
I think you can actually add the keyboard to that one in the future if you wanted to.
I don't know. I know that when it connects to the Shield, it connects through Bluetooth and it's emulating a keyboard.
Yeah.
So
That's how it connects to pretty much, like it'll
Like
connect to
your
an
PC
Apple.
and stuff.
It'll do an Apple TV the same way.
got it.
Yeah.
And it'll connect to a ton of stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how perfect I can get it.
It's very flexible. And even at one point, I had a Samsung television that had an HDMI 3 input, but like even looking my model up on their app, it only had HDMI 1 and 2, and I wanted to be able to switch directly to 3. And I just like emailed their support, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, we looked it up. We added it to your profile." They just like added the button.
That's pretty cool.
right? So
That's pretty cool.
and you can't program it the old way.
Right, where you
You
can
can't
like
point another remote at.
yeah.
Like you have to get it
It
from
defaults to this never using infrared.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can change it, but it
You can.
defaults that way.
Yeah.
All right, so that's mine. I'll give you some more updates on that as we go through the days and weeks. I'm waiting for my wife to get home tomorrow night to judge did I get the home theater set up to an easy enough state where she's comfortable.
here's
using
what
it.
you
Wife
do.
acceptance factor.
Buy Planet Earth 2 on Blu-ray and pop that in and have it playing
When she comes
in. And she'll be like, "Oh my god, that looks amazing on that OLED set."
It's a wonderful
There you
idea.
go.
But now there's a sacrifice. The remote and the way
Yeah.
you watch TV is different.
Yeah,
But,
you can go to that later.
yeah. Allyn, I think you're up next.
So I think I ticked these guys past 400,000 on their Kickstarter like a week ago.
You donated $400,000.
No,
Jesus.
I just happen to be the guy that.
Oh, I
like,
see.
Yeah. Anyway, Myst 25th anniversary collection. So I actually own all of these games. I have purchased them. I have like the boxes for every single one of these games. However, I can't play all these games on like modern stuff anymore because
Sure.
some of this goes way back, right? Even if I had, some of the ones I had before were already remasters, but they were remasters 10 years ago, right? So like, it's kind of tricky
You
to
need
make
to
that
get
stuff.
deep with DOSBox if you wanted to run this stuff.
Yes, yeah, for really deep. So it's a 7-game collection that if you go for the bottom tier of the Kickstarter, it's $50. $50 for all 7 Myst games. That's a lot of playtime for $50. And a lot of like puzzles and content and
Right.
stuff. That's a deal.
Okay, do you remember the excitement when Real Myst came
Yeah.
out?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, it looks
insanity.
like all the pre-rendered stuff from Myst. Doesn't it look spectacular? And look at it, it's like, eh.
Yeah. now the pre-rendered stuff still holds up because that was like
Is this real Myst that I'm seeing right now?
No. That's
No.
Riven.
Okay.
That's actually just one of the cutscene videos in Riven. The big deal with the Riven was like that they actually had video transitions.
Okay.
Right.
Was
But
it just fades?
Yeah, but going through all these games is kind of like a walk through like the progress of just
Man.
gaming. Right? Just like, you have the original Myst, which there was really not any animation at all, except for looking in the little box video animation of a book that's open on
Right.
on a thing, right? Which was like barely anything on the screen. And at the time, that was still filling up the whole CD-ROM that game came on, and that was another big deal, right? Wasn't that like one of the first CD-ROM games or something,
I think so.
Yeah. So you go from that, and you can, as you progress through these different titles, you're progressing through like the game engines got more and more advanced, and the graphics got better and better and stuff like that. But it's all the same kind of, universe
Right.
of,
Yeah.
all these things, right? However, they do have higher tiers. And they will give you like, it's like for another $100, you get like a Myst book box. Like there's DVDs of the game. I don't know who Josh can install via DVD, basically.
Yeah.
But you'll get digital downloads and like the physical versions of the games, but they come in a Myst book box. It's like a recreation of the Myst book. Like
Okay. Yeah.
And then if you pledge some more, that book will have a built-in computer with an LCD screen
Raspberry Pi.
And it will, and when you open the book, it will have the animations
That's
of where the
pretty
places where you were going to link to.
Sure.
Looping,
Yeah.
right?
All right.
So this is what you spent $400,000 on?
Yeah, it was a really expensive Myst book. Really expensive. And then if you want to go super crazy, like there's, you get like,
I don't.
yeah, I mean, there's crazy high tiers where you're getting objects that they made that are actual objects from within the game, and they're actually like making them and sending them to you. Anyway, it's cool if you're a fan of the series, and if you're a guy like me that had already owned these things for like decades.
Why not buy them again?
This to me is worth it. Like I'll spend $50 to be able to play all these things and have them supported on like Windows 10 and modern hardware. Yeah.
Jeremy, what do you got for me?
Well, today's episode in Baffling Techs was a McAfee engineer who finally broke down and said, well, shit, I've never seen that before in encryption. But as part of that, I had to make a brand new encryption recovery disk. And of course, just loaded up Rufus, and away I went and did it. And suddenly realized we've never actually mentioned Rufus as a pick on the podcast.
We have. I made it a pick like years ago.
I searched and it wasn't there.
Huh.
I'm telling you, I know I did it as a pick.
Nah,
I had to.
I trust Jeremy
it
more
must
than
have been
you.
one of them lost episodes.
Maybe.
But it's just one of those tools that you never think about telling anyone about because you've been using it for damn ever. And it's just small and innocuous, and one of the best ways to make a bloody boot disk of any description from an ISO or just about anything else you want.
Yeah.
Remember how awful this used to be? Like,
it used to be
download the Windows
frustrating.
boot floppy and format your USB drive in a special way. God,
Yeah.
such a steaming pile of crap. And then, like,
used to have to
Rufus
use-
was like the
This part
first
was for-
really easy to use tool for any ISO.
You used to have to use WinImage.
It's ugh.
It's actually kind of interesting.
Ghostery, like all the crap we've gone through over the years dealing with images. And this is just friggin' easy.
And this tool it's also very creative for just make a DOS bootable USB drive.
Yeah.
Like you want to do firmware updates from the command prompt, just do. You don't even need the image. You just like fire up this tool, and it has like the I forget what version. It's not Microsoft.
It's
obviously.
FreeDOS, I think.
I
That's like
remember having to
FreeDOS.
like
It's FreeDOS.
supply the boot drive to it though.
You don't have to do that anymore.
I know, but I used to download this or something like this and be like, oh, no, I got to go someplace and find like an MS-DOS image with which to point it to. Please, Lord, just make this an easy one-step process.
Yeah.
Good.
And now it is and has been for a long
select
time.
Finally.
Disk 1, create partition primary, select partition
good
1
God.
active.
Yeah, you're
Done.
giving me PTSD. Stop. Jesus.
And it's actually like smart enough to look, like if you're writing a Linux ISO, it's smart enough to like look in and figure out like potential incompatibilities with like the kernel version it's using and stuff like that. Don't just like grab the right stuff and be like, okay, there you go, done.
Now, does this do the hybrid GPT and MBT?
Yes.
It can.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
That stuff is magic.
But if you
It
want
takes you a couple of clicks, but
But if you want a UEFI specific install, there's a drop down. You actually have to choose like
Yeah, you could choose.
GPT UEFI only.
Yeah.
It's like
Right.
the
Dude,
bottom
It's all
option.
PFM. It's all PFM to me.
But the
But it will do MBR for either one.
right. But there's some new stuff with, I don't know how new it is. I know with the Debian Live Boot system, it will build you a image that is, it has an MBR,
Yeah.
a standard DOS boot label,
Right.
or disk label. It also has a GPT file system or
Yeah.
partition table on it.
Yeah.
And the MBR indexes the first partition into the actual GPT ISO image. So
Okay, they're pointing them at the same place.
they point at the same place, so it'll boot on modern and legacy devices at the same time.
I think this will do that trick. However, if you put a Windows installer ISO on there and you want a UEFI,
I don't think that
specific-
works with Windows.
or if you want you want it to make a GPT partition from within Windows setup, right? You have to force it to do only the GPT mode. Otherwise, it's something like the Windows installer sees how it booted.
Right.
Like, and it's one of those tricks.
That
if
trick
you're
only
lucky
works
enough,
for,
you can just disable all that in your motherboard, so it's not even an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And away you go.
Anyway, that's a great tool.
Josh, last, maybe least, we'll see.
Least is Certainly a given when it comes to dealing with me.
Mm-hmm.
Least amount of hair, least amount of personality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not telling me anything.
Shall we go on?
Let's go with the pick.
Okay. It's funny. I'd picked this before I realized that we were actually going to talk about it. We've been looking for a good competitor for the 960 Evo and 960 Pro, and we finally have it. They're on sale, and they're actually slightly below MSRP, the WD Black. The 500 gig, I believe, or 512. I mean, that's, 229 is, no, wait, what?
160.
Scroll over to the, for the 256.
Oh,
No,
you're,
it's
you're not the
512.
512
How much is it?
selected.
Scroll over there.
What do you want to pick,
169.
Josh?
I can't. It's 169.
Which one do you want to?
Okay, I'm sorry. You know what? I'm really confused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
256 is $89.99.
These are inexpensive drives.
These-
Now, this is the first generation. It's not the one that Alan talked about.
Yeah.
I got confused. But still, for that price, they're pretty good
Although
little
I will say
products.
this new egg listing is awfully confusing.
Yeah. What's the new one called?
The Western Digital WD Black, which
That's
is
printed on the label of this SSD.
As long as you pick the 2D
Yeah.
one, not the 3D one.
yeah. So
God.
this just
The label
points,
looks clearly different.
this
So
just
buy the
points out.
SanDisk one so you know which one you're getting.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
not for sale yet.
this points out the confusion we were talking about earlier.
That's ridiculous.
I'm so confused. That's strange because, I'm looking at the one that I looked at, and it's the 500 gig NVMe for $229.
That should be the newer one
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
because
think-
Western Digital is
I don't
spelled
know
out
what-
and then WD Black.
Let me
I
put
know.
the link
It's just
of
silly.
the one that I am looking at in our little
Ryan
chatter
clicked your
thing.
link.
I clicked the link.
Yeah.
Click
New egg.
the link.
I can't click that one from where I'm at anyway. Okay, sure. What am I looking at here? This is WD Black NVMe 2280 500 gig, $229. So why would I want that one? It's $40 more, $60 more.
Yeah, but it's the
This
much
is the 3D
faster
one.
one. The
Oh.
new,
Yeah,
new
it's
and
the new one.
improved.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The one we just talked about.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. I'll do a good search for it. I'm sure I'll find it.
Sure you will.
And speaking of, stumping the McAfee, don't use a Cronus True Image that comes with your Western Digital SSD on an
See
encrypted
these
hard drive.
logos?
It
Well,
goes badly.
Yeah, you can't. Those cloning tools generally don't work.
Show
right
this. Show this for me real fast. I just searched Western Digital WD Black.
Uh huh.
Yeah, let's see. I guess some hard drives.
You're getting the hard drives.
Type in NVMe
No,
afterwards.
this is fun.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. We're getting close. Here it is.
Which one is?
Oh, that's the old one.
No, this is it.
That's the new, all new.
So you want an easier way
Oh wait,
to figure?
right here. 2D NAND, 3D NAND.
Right.
There's a button
3D
right
NAND.
on it.
Somebody
Do you want
was
an
always
easy
trying
way
to
to
do
figure it out?
NAND button.
You want a slightly easier way?
Not really.
Seriously, these are under the same SKUs for the 2D and the 3D versions.
You are correct, sir.
Well, I mean, it does differentiate it.
Well, no, but
How many people know what the hell that means?
here's the thing: if it's a 512
bigger
gig
than
model,
2.
it's the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If it's a
It's a
500 gig
500.
model, it's the new one,
yeah, I got it.
right? It's
All new.
anyway.
If only we could have Alex
big
come
black.
in, and every time we have a new product come in, just comes in and says
The all new.
the all new.
Yeah.
Look at that fancy video.
That is
Fancy.
fancy. It's
Built
built for greatness.
All
Wow.
for greatness.
All right.
Hear that?
That's it. We're done.
Done.
Thanks everybody for joining us. PCPro.com/podcast, the URL you can go to for show notes, links, all the stories we discussed, etc. Obviously, you want to go to joshtech.com and order your
And
Josh
buy.
Tech t-shirt
Pull out your wallets.
And other.
with Josh Walrus on it, or your mug. We did get 2 more Patreons in here. It's not the same without Josh Walrus. My name is Clay. Is a new patron who pledged $3.
I like it.
Thank you, Clay. And then this one, Jesus.
Oh boy.
It's the end of the show, right? Nobody listens this far in.
Oh god.
No.
This didn't come from me.
Darth Malventano says,
Spit it out.
I hear Ryan craves tickle pickles. So there you go.
Oh, dear Lord.
It's a pledge for $5. So I said that out loud for $5,
every
everybody.
penny.
That was worth it. That was worth it.
I need to drink some more of this bourbon. Anyway, like I said, pcpro.com/podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week. Thanks everyone. Bye.